I have always believed that there is no better way to connect with someone than through laughter. Growing up, my sister and I reveled in this shared truth. We were like two pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, one whimsical and the other orderly, a dynamic blend of chaos and harmony. Even as children, I was the one bounding through life, my arms wide like a bird ready to take flight, while my sister Emma kept us grounded, meticulously organizing our chaotic existence with her hawk-like focus. But as I grew older, I realized that the home we once shared, filled with laughter and shared dreams, had transformed into a silent battleground coated in unspoken tensions. The quaint town of Cloverfield felt like a stage, and our family was the cast in a never-ending play where the audience never clapped, only sighed, hoping for a resolution that somehow always eluded us. The air in our home was thick with expectation, a tangled web spun by our parents. My father, a figure cloaked in sternness, possessed a gaze that could cut through stone. He seemed ever watchful, ready to catch me in my next misstep. My mother, on the other hand, was the soft glue holding our family together, her calm demeanor often smoothing over my father's abrasive edges. Yet even she had her battles, quietly fighting a war against her own fragility. It left me feeling boxed in, stifled by the weight of their expectations. As a kid, I was a comet whizzing through the sky, bright, loud, and impossible to ignore. In contrast, Emma was the earthbound star, steady, reliable, but often clouded by a sense of anxiety that lingered around her like a dark mist. There were moments when the world outside looked so inviting, my friends' laughter echoing in my memory as I longed for the freedom to be the person I wanted to be, not merely the version my family expected. But navigating the waters of our household felt like trying to swim against a strong current, an exhausting endeavor that often left me underwater, gasping for air with every quip or joke I attempted to share. It was a simple dinner, the way many had come and gone, with plates clattering and uneasy conversations lingering uneasily in the air. I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders as I looked around our dinner table that night, my sister sitting across from me, her brow furrowed as she meticulously adjusted her cutlery in a straight line. My father's mind seemed miles away, only to return to our moment with an imposing silence that hung heavy over us like an impending storm. My mother, bless her soul, attempted to lighten the mood with small talk, but her voice blended into the background like a radio playing softly in a far-off room. In my attempts to break the thickening tension, an idea sparked. "So, did I ever tell you guys about the time I tripped over my own feet while trying to dance?" I said, mustering every ounce of cheerfulness I could conjure while hoping to bathe our dinner in laughter. My father looked up sharply, his eyes narrowing, and for a fleeting moment I could feel the atmosphere shift. "Really, Aurora?" "Not the time," he replied, his voice laced with disapproval, the air around us dampening like the sky before a thunderstorm. I swallowed hard, feeling like I had lost my footing on a tightrope. It was Emma's response that sliced deeper than I anticipated. "You think this is a game? You never take anything seriously." Her frustrated shout pierced through the facade of laughter like shattered glass, each word delivering a blow I would not soon forget. Those words hung in the air, settling like a cold mist, and in that unforgiving moment I felt as though a part of my heart had been irreparably fractured. If our bond had once been cemented tightly, in that instant I felt it split apart, replaced with a growing chasm filled with unspoken words and tangled emotions. Dinner continued in stony silence, the conversation dead. I could feel the heavy weight of disappointment settle in my stomach like a stone. Life as we knew it had morphed into a quiet chaos, each of us wandering further into our corners, finding comfort in our solitude while craving connection that felt impossibly out of reach. Weeks passed, each day blurring into the next, filled with heavy silence and the unyielding tension that had woven itself into our lives. Our evenings became odd rituals of avoidance, the simple act of gathering around the table now feeling like navigating a minefield. The laughter we had once shared faded into echoes of what felt like a distant dream, replaced by moments thick with resentment and bottled-up frustration. I often thought about our favorite show, Modern Family, and how its characters unraveled their conflicts with humor and love. Each episode left me wishing fervently that we could do the same, that we could be that family navigating life's intricacies with warmth, rather than glare. My heart ached to reclaim the bond Emma and I had once shared, and yet every time I saw her, the walls between us felt insurmountable. I knew that something needed to change. I wanted to take the reins of our family dynamic and shift the course of our conversations, but how? An idea began to take root within me, a plan that danced at the edge of my mind, soft yet powerful. Emma's birthday was approaching, a marker in the calendar that had always sparked joy in our home. What if I orchestrated a gathering, a way to lure our parents in with the promises of laughter and love, a last-ditch effort to heal our wounded hearts? Over the next few days, I faded deeper into that familiar comfort that only came with planning. I mapped out every detail, sifting through cherished memories and the gnawing desire to make this gathering special. Each element would bring back the playful spirit we had lost, and I envisioned a night filled with laughter, rekindled connections, and above all else, hope. I began reaching out to Emma, cautiously proposing the idea, my heart racing with every new exchange. "What do you think about a little birthday party?" I cautiously inquired, desperate to see her eyes light up, just like they used to on those glorious family celebrations. Her reaction was hesitant, but as I peppered her with ideas, I could feel her uncertainty waning, slowly giving way to the excitement we had both longed for. "Maybe," she replied eventually, her voice softening a bit. It could be nice, just the family. The words hung in the air, fragile but full of promise. That evening, I curled up on the couch with a notebook, my heart racing as I scribbled down ideas. Streamers, balloons, Emma's favorite cake, simple but meaningful touches that would pull at the threads of our shared history. I hoped against hope that underneath all the tension, the shared DNA of memories could bridge the gap between us. I strategized to include our parents, planning fun games, hoping to place them in spaces where they could rediscover laughter and perhaps find a way to connect with us again. A gathering, I thought, just like the gatherings of joy from our past, a party where laughter would spill over like an awning in a summer rain. I pictured our parents stepping through the front door, the excitement intermingling with the smell of Emma's favorite lemon cake baking in the oven as sunlight poured through our colorful string lights, illuminating family pictures lined up on our walls. I imagined bright smiles, game nights, and stories shared over piles of snacks. It all felt within reach, but only if I could stop lurking in the shadows of my own insecurities and seize this moment before it slipped away like grains of sand through trembling fingers. The night approached quickly, and tension bubbled just beneath the surface, uncertain like a distant rumble of thunder. My excitement danced with hope, but I could not shake off the knot in my stomach. I was ready to confront everything, the unspoken and unshed tears that had weighed us down for far too long. I knew some wounds run deep, but I felt an unshakable resolve to breach the silence. As I prepared for that fateful night, each decoration was a step toward reclaiming our laughter, each detail an act of defiance against the friction that had settled between us. I set the stage for a night filled with love, where we could unearth the layers of ourselves that had been buried beneath the rubble of misunderstandings. I could only hope that as the sun dipped below the horizon, it would carry away the weight that had pinned us down all these weeks, planting instead the seeds for something new. In that moment of hope, just before the doorbell would ring, I whispered to myself that this could be the turning point we all desperately needed. The day of the party arrived, the air thick with anticipation mingled with dread. The sun had barely risen when I started transforming our home into a festive paradise, my fingers dancing over colorful balloons, bright streamers, and twinkling fairy lights. I could feel the tingles of excitement prickling at my skin while I meticulously arranged decorations, taking care that everything was perfect. Each balloon I tied and each light I hung felt like a piece of my plan falling into place. The whole world outside faded as I lost myself in the whirl of colors, the magic of the moment wrapping around me like a warm blanket. As the hours passed, our home transitioned from its usual somber self into a lively spectacle, bursting with energy and vibrancy. Family and friends began to filter in, their laughter mingling with the sweet aroma of homemade cake and savory dishes drifting through the air, a kaleidoscope of scents that wrapped around me. The lighthearted chatter and animated voices of my family created a melody, one that I was momentarily part of until the realization of my mission returned like a cold splash of water. They have no idea, I thought, a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth as I moved through the crowd, feeling almost invisible amid the colorful whirlwind. There, in the corners of the room, I caught snippets of whispered complaints about our parents' relentless demands. "Can you believe Dad said I could do better?" One cousin grumbled, rolling her eyes in disbelief. Another chimed in, "You have no idea. They told me I should take a year off school, but only if I can get accepted to Harvard first." My heart raced. It dawned on me that I was not alone under this suffocating blanket of expectation. I was surrounded by people who, like me, had been molded and shaped by the heavy hands of perfectionism. The familiar feeling of camaraderie washed over me, and for a brief moment I felt lighter. I glanced at Emma, standing at the edge of the crowd, her fingers nervously fidgeting with the hem of her blouse. She caught my eye and gave me a small, supportive nod. "You got this," her look seemed to say, her tension slowly uncoiling and transmitting strength to my own quailing heart. I could feel the excitement bubbling in my chest with each passing moment, tinged with trepidation. As the clock wound down and guests mingled, I slipped away into the living room where I had set up a special space just for my moment. The reflections from the chandelier above danced across the room, casting soft, flickering shadows that eerily mirrored my growing anxiety. Taking a deep breath, I steadied myself in front of the makeshift stage, measuring its distance from my parents. The room slowly fell silent, like the calm before a storm. I realized I had their complete attention, curious eyes focused on me, filled with a blend of amusement and concern. My heart hammered against my ribs as I clasped my hands together, the echo of murmurs fading. "Well," I began, my voice slightly quivering but growing stronger as I continued. "Let me just say, in a family as unique as ours, there are two types of people. There are those who try to survive and those who try to thrive, and honestly, I was always the former." Laughter erupted from the crowd, reverberating through the room like a string of fireworks igniting. It filled me with warmth and courage. As I scanned the faces before me, I didn't just see amusement, but reflections of shared suffering, glimpses of relief. The deep-seated burdens we had carried were suddenly palpable, surfacing in that moment like a tide breaking through the dam. I caught Emma's eye again, and I could see her tension ease a little more, her smile growing broader. Encouraged by the laughter, I continued, "And let us not forget, dear Mom. I love you really, but whose love was as disciplined as it was intense, whose expectations were sewn into our everyday lives like invisible strings, tugging at us whenever we strayed off the designated path." Gasps mingled with laughter, creating a wave of energy that swept through the room. I aimed my gaze at my parents, observing as color drained from their faces, slowly revealing the realization of just how deeply their criticisms had cut. Confusion danced with disbelief, and I savored it, allowing the audience's laughter to build, fueling the momentum of my roast. If school was a movie, I think we would be cast as unfortunate extras. You know, the kids in the background, overwhelmed by the lead roles played by mom and dad as they meticulously navigated our lives like directors molding us into perfect characters. I pointed dramatically at my parents, trying my best to keep a straight face while the room erupted in a cacophony of giggles and snickers. Honestly, I was just waiting for cut. Every time I flubbed a line in life, I continued, letting my own laughter blend in with theirs. Like that time I got a C in algebra, you would have thought I was about to get kicked out of the family. Thank goodness for the unconditional love on the fridge door, right, Dad? I winked at him playfully, spurring an anxious look that swept over his features, mixed with unwilling amusement. My parents shifted in their seats, and the lovely masquerade I had arranged began to unravel. I saw Dad's hand grip the arm of his chair tightly, knuckles white against the injustice of being the butt of the joke. Mom's eyes narrowed slightly, a slight frown pulling at her lips, but I pushed onward. It was liberating to speak freely, to expose faults and flaws hidden beneath the surface. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath for far too long. What about our family dinners? I continued, tone dipping into mock seriousness. If you didn't finish your broccoli, you'd better watch out. I swear I heard the faint sounds of thunder every time you reminded us how many starving kids would love to eat it. I am still convinced that saving broccoli from starving children was a noble cause, right, Mom? People erupted in laughter again, my words echoing long after they were spoken, pushing away the barrier of tension that had enveloped us all. I saw Emma grin wider, biting her lip to suppress her own laughter as she caught my eye just before mouthing, "Yes," in encouragement. Then came the true killer line I had prepared, and I could feel it lingering in the air like a thick fog ready to roll in. And let's talk about perfectionism. I leaned closer to my family, and a hush fell over the room. In this family, mistakes were treated like unspeakable sins, right? Remember the time when I spilt grape juice on the new carpet? I was pretty sure I had committed a crime against humanity. But honestly, it was just juice, not an indictment. Yet being a part of this family meant living like a character in a drama where every little slip-up could earn you harsh criticism and weary sighs. There it was, perfectly timed and delivered like a well-rehearsed play. The collective gasp that followed was intoxicating, a tangible shift in the room's atmosphere. I could feel my heart racing, the thrill of the moment washed over me. The facade I had long hoped to crack was breaking, splintering under the weight of shared experiences finally voiced. Then I saw it, just for a moment, the resignation in my parents' eyes, the echo of reality shimmering behind their tightly controlled expressions. They had wanted perfection, they always had, and now I could see how their relentless expectations had left scars on us all. As the laughter washed over me, I felt a sense of relief flooding in, like lifting a heavy yoke that had been pressing down on my shoulders. I noticed I was no longer just talking to my family, I was addressing something deeper. This was not merely a slapstick roast, but a call to unmask our reality, a challenge to step out from the shadow of perfectionism that had all but stifled our individuality. I'm not saying perfectionism is bad, I added, a softer edge to my tone as I watched the shifting emotions in the room. But there is a beauty in our imperfections. I mean, look around, look at us. We are loud, we are clumsy, we are colorful, and we're a little crazy too, and that is totally okay. Applause erupted around me, the sound reverberating through my chest. I could feel the weight of the moment hover in the air, a heavy atmosphere that was slowly evolving into something lighter, hopeful. Sharing our burdens had suddenly transformed into laughter and camaraderie, and it was exhilarating. Finally, I concluded with a smirk. So here's to our beautiful mess of a family. May we forever thrive in our unique chaos rather than just survive. The laughter that followed felt like freedom, a shared release of years of pent-up pressure. I stepped back from the stage, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Emma's cheering smile was unwavering, a beacon of solidarity. In that moment, I felt triumphant and somehow more alive than ever. I pressed on, my words flowing like a river breaking free from its dam. And Dad, who taught us that humor is best when it is not welcomed but forced. Laughter erupted, a buoyant sound rising high, enveloping us like a warm blanket on a cold winter night. The room vibrated with the echoes of chuckles and snorts. It was contagious, igniting a spark in even the most stoic faces. I could feel Emma's timid smile grow behind me, urging me forward. Her eyes sparkled with a mixture of encouragement and vulnerability, a testament to the shared courage that was stirring within us all. Each punchline, each jovial quip seemed to peel back layers of shame and anger we had all held so close, like a tight vice squeezing the air out of the room. In that moment, it felt like a dam finally burst, releasing an unseen flood of truth that washed over me, drowning out the years of resentment we had kept buried. You see, it is easy to assume that humor only serves to deflect deeper issues, but amidst shared laughter, we found the courage to confront our struggles. I let my gaze drift from my father's rigid demeanor to my mother's curious eyes, searching for the flicker of recognition. I paused, my heart racing as the control I had over the room tightened. Anxiety gripped me, but I pressed my hands against the wooden table, feeling its cool surface steadying me. What I truly want is for us to understand that we are allowed to be ourselves, to shed the expectations that have weighed us down. My voice softened, becoming earnest as I searched the faces surrounding me. The smile on Emma's face faded, replaced by a seriousness that creeped into her features. A palpable shift occurred in the room. You could feel the tension dissolve like sugar in warm water. Even our parents started to visibly soften, their facades cracking under the weight of recognition. Every chuckle that dissolved into silence momentarily allowed for reflection, a flicker of understanding sparking in the depths of our collective consciousness. Around the room, people were nodding in realization, reflecting on their own stories of similar struggles with our parents. I could see shadows of discomfort turning into reflections of empathy. I wondered how many unspoken words were hidden behind their grins, how many stories were just waiting to take flight. I locked eyes with Emma, and in that moment, the healing began. It was an unbreakable bond that had grown from years of shared experiences, silent battles, and whispered fears. Her presence was a lighthouse in this fog of emotions. It spurred something in her as she stepped up next to me, an anchor amidst the storm. Her voice, barely a whisper, grew louder, rising like the tide. We are not perfect, and that is okay. The roles we felt forced to play are nothing more than illusions. Her words hung in the air, powerful like the stillness before a thunderstorm. It was raw honesty, and I felt an overwhelming rush of relief wash over me. It was as if we were tossing out the old scripts we had followed blindly for years, freeing ourselves from the shackles of outsized expectations. I looked around the room again. The laughter from before faded into a shared understanding, voices hushed but not unpleasant. I saw my father reaching for my mother's hand, hesitantly at first, as if wary of her reaction. But their eyes met, and I could see the weight of unspoken burdens being acknowledged. His eyes were filled with a mixture of regret and understanding, the kind of emotion that told tales of hurt from long ago and unhealed wounds. It was a sight I had longed for, a validation of our feelings. I wanted them to understand that their expectations had created chasms between us, invisible but painfully real, and that perhaps they had been defined by the same roles we had been forced to adopt. No longer were we simply roles in a family play. We were human, flawed, and beautifully real. I could feel courage washing over us in waves, coaxing us to share, to open up, to be completely vulnerable in this moment of truth. I took a deep breath, the air thick with emotion, the kind of emotions we had been so good at sidestepping for years. Sometimes I wonder if the masks we wear are just as heavy as the burdens we carry beneath. I continued, my voice steady. We put on these facades to meet the expectations of others, but in doing so, we lose sight of who we are. We are more than our successes and failures together. Emma nodded, a determination strengthening her presence as she continued. It is terrifying to peel back those layers to show who we are beneath the polish, but we deserve to be seen for who we truly are. There was an underlying thrill in the air, like the tension before a storm breaking into a symphony of raindrops. It was electrifying and liberating, and my heart pounded at the thought of finally tearing down our family's carefully constructed barriers. The silence that followed was both deafening and comforting. It was a shared understanding that resonated throughout the room. My father's grip on my mother's hand tightened. I never meant to put that kind of pressure on you. I wanted the best for all of you. His voice was earnest, breaking with a sincerity that had been absent for far too long. He finally carved out a little bit of the truth that had dwelled inside him, his own struggles laid bare. The token family man, always trying to provide, yet our connection felt like a bridge with too many gaps. Emma glanced at me, a shared look that spoke volumes, hope and disbelief swirling in an unshakable bond between siblings. I know you wanted the best, Dad, I replied softly, feeling the heaviness of his words settle into my chest. But what we needed was to feel seen and understood, not just to meet these invisible milestones. My voice trembled slightly, but I pressed on, wanting him to truly comprehend. I remember the countless nights spent trying to please you, trying to win your approval while feeling like a ghost in my own life. I just want to tell you that I am not that same child anymore. I am embracing my mistakes as learning experiences. A surreal silence fell upon the room, each word like a pebble dropped in still water, the ripples of my feelings slowly echoing back. I could see the myriad of emotions dancing across my father's face, confusion, sorrow, and eventually a dawning realization. Emma stepped forward, emboldened by my openness. It has affected us, the need to always be better, perfect, even. We felt like we had to hide our true selves, but we want to encourage each other to be raw and real. Her voice cracked, yet the tremor was not one of fear. It was the cracking of barriers, layer by layer. I always thought I was preparing you for the world, the harsh truths and realities, my father admitted slowly. I never considered how my expectations could be a weight rather than a motivation. I'm sorry if I kept you from being yourselves. His eyes glistened with unshed tears, and something deep within me began to thaw. It was too easy to hold on to the past, the disappointment, the anger, but seeing him bare his soul stung like salt in a fresh wound, forcing me to confront my resentments. And Mom, I turned to where she sat, cheeks stained with tears silently dripping down her face. Did you ever realize how hard it was for us to meet what you expected? A delicate silence fell over our little family as her expression shifted. I just wanted to keep things perfect, to make sure everything was organized, to create a happy family. But I see now that being perfect doesn't mean being truly happy. There was an acknowledgement in her voice that felt like the first rays of the morning sun breaking through a thick fog. The collective sigh of recognition was palpable. Here, too, was the pain born from expectations, stitched into the very fabric of who we were. Each of us bore the weight of our own truths, slowly unburdening ourselves from the shackles of unvoiced resentments. It felt like air was finally flowing into spaces we had fought to keep closed for years. I wanted change, my father said, breaking the silence spooned in with vulnerability. I want to do better to be better. I want to bond with you, connect with the real you. Leaning forward, he reached out to Emma first, pulling her into a long overdue embrace. I watched in stunned silence as she melted into him, her body shaking with the weight of everything they had kept inside. My mother joined, wrapping her arms around both of them, a trio of tangled emotions expressing an unholy blend of joy and sorrow. I felt as though my heart might burst from the sheer beauty of that moment. In the messy aftermath of our past, growth was born. I took a small step forward, my heart racing as I braced myself for my own participation in this familial harmony. I want that too, Dad, I whispered, my voice trembling with the weight of truth. I need that. The warm embrace around us felt like an invitation to step into a new chapter together, a story untangled from the binding we had let previous expectations create. I could finally see a glimmer of hope that the familiarity of sorrow and anger could give way to understanding, compassion, and love. No more masks, Emma said, lifting her head, her gaze shimmering with new resolve. No more playing parts because we think that is what the world wants from us. We'll be honest to ourselves and each other. We can redefine how we relate to one another. With that, a barrier cracked completely, and the warmth of vulnerability smothered us like the smell of hot cocoa on a snow day. I felt strength in our unity, laughter turning to something deeper, sustaining, and everlasting. This journey of truth had just begun, and together we would chart our course toward healing and connection as the evening progressed. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of purple and gold, much like the dawning realization that wrapped around my heart. The soft glow from the living room lamp created a warm cocoon that contrasted sharply with the chill of silence that had hung over our family for far too long. We sat together, no longer encased in our individual bubbles of tension and misunderstanding, but instead floating on the river of stories that flowed between us. Laughter erupted like a joyful choir, resonating against the walls that had seen too much sorrow and too few celebrations. Remember that time Emma tried to bake a cake for Mom's birthday? I began, feeling a smile carve its way across my face as I recalled the glorious disaster. The kitchen looked like a flour bomb exploded. We were all on our knees trying to scrub the white dust away before you got home. I glanced at Emma, whose cheeks were glowing with the embarrassment mixed with humor. Oh, stop, I was artistic with the frosting. Emma shot back playfully, the previous heaviness between us easing even further as she embraced the lightheartedness. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. Artistic and a little experimental, she added, shrugging her shoulders like it was all part of the grand plan. The memories unfolded one after another, like pages in a cherished book that had finally been cracked open. And who could forget Dad's famous burnt sausages at that cookout last summer? Another wave of laughter rolled through the room, each chuckle melding into the next, binding us tighter in this unexpected reunion of spirits. My father's laughter punctured the air, deep and rich, breaking the cold facade he had donned for years. Hey, I was trying to grill those sausages to perfection, he said, mock defensiveness painting his features. I just timed them wrong, it was a learning experience. I noticed a glimmer in his eyes, a blend of joviality and perhaps regret, as if every laugh was a confess to a silent apology. All the stories started to surface, little vignettes from our life that had melted into shadows but now reemerged bright and alive. With every reminiscence, barriers began to dissolve, and I sensed my mother softening in her seat, her posture shifting from defensive to relaxed. You were always trying so hard to get everything just right, dear, she said gently, a hint of nostalgia threading through her voice. I never appreciated the chaos you created as a child, but I see it now as a sign of your creativity. The realization struck me with a force that made my heart flutter. My mother, often stern and critical, was trying to understand the very essence of who I and we were. It dawned on me then with increasing clarity that even the most critical of parents can be ignorant of the impact their expectations have on their children. I watched her, feeling an exhilarating warmth spread within as I imagined what our relationships could become if we continued to embrace this vulnerability. Emma then shifted in her seat, the weight of her own truths pressing down like a heavy cloak, but the glimmer of bravery shined through her words as she took the spotlight. I want to share something too, she started, her voice quavering slightly, tinged with the heavy burdens she had carried alone for so long. For a long time, I felt like I was on this endless treadmill of trying to please everyone around me. Mom and Dad, it seemed like no matter what I did, it was never enough. Her voice broke slightly, and I could feel the air grow thick with empathy, the room falling silent as my family turned towards her, riveted. I struggled with anxiety, and often it felt like a dark cloud that followed me everywhere. Sometimes I thought I would drown in it. I really believed I could never be the daughter you wanted. I felt my heart clench in my chest and my eyes stung with tears, but I held them back, wanting to be strong for her. Emma, you are enough. You always have been, I whispered, wishing an invisible thread connected us all to weave those words into the fabric of her heart. A deep sigh escaped her lips, relief mingling with vulnerability. I just wanted you to see me for who I am beneath all that noise, she continued, her voice gaining strength, emboldened by the space we were creating together. It was exhausting trying to fit into a mold that was never made for me. And what exacerbated my anxiety was the feeling that I let you both down if I didn't meet your expectations. The pressure was unbearable. Tears brimmed in my mother's eyes, shimmering like dew on fresh grass. "Oh, honey, we didn't mean to put that pressure on you. It was never about you failing, it was our inability to see you for you," she said, her voice trembling, breaking from its usual stern tone into something more soothing, more maternal. "I'm so sorry for not being more aware." The air hung thick with realization and sincerity, and I couldn't help but notice how each word transformed the space between us into a bridge reaching toward understanding. Each story became a brushstroke on the canvas of our family history, a vivid tapestry stitched with pain but now glimmering with hope. It became clear that our shared pain was paving the way for a new beginning, a time where love would take precedence over perfection, where we no longer had to hide behind facades. Just then I looked at my father, and his gaze, a mirror of regret, softened when he looked at me. I saw in his eyes the dawning of acknowledgement, the realization that he had stifled my spirit in his attempts to mold me into the ideal son he thought he wanted. My heart swelled as I grasped the hope igniting within him where suspicion and judgment had once taken root. Son, I will do better. I can see now how my own dreams might have blinded me to your dreams. I never wanted to hurt you, he murmured, voice low yet powerful, resonating with a sense of newfound purpose. I know, Dad, it's okay. I am still trying to figure it all out too, I whispered back, feeling the warmth of forgiveness spiral around us. I could almost feel the room changing, a breeze of fresh possibilities wafting through, replacing the stale air of the past. As we shared our stories, I could feel strength growing, weaving together our experiences like threads of acceptance that formed an intricate spider's web of understanding. I saw my mother and father not as the perfect models of my childhood, but as flawed human beings striving and stumbling just like me. Do you all remember those family game nights? I laughed, trying to inject a little lightness back into the moment, anxious to keep this newfound warmth alive. Remember when Dad got overly competitive and nearly threw the board across the room? Oh, come on, you can't deny that game was rigged from the start. He protested, eyes ablaze with mischief, which made everyone burst into laughter again. You totally cheated, Emma chimed in, fake pout twisting her face, giggling. I knew you had your own dice stashed somewhere. All right, he said, waving his hands dramatically. I concede I may have stacked the odds in my favor that time. The atmosphere lightened with his admission, our laughter knitting us closer. The night stretched on, and each memory became a thread tying us to one another, stitching the past into present joy. The atmosphere shifted, the burdens of resentment and disappointment lifting, replaced with love and acceptance. I could hardly believe how far we had come in just a few hours of open sharing. It was as if we were shedding the old versions of ourselves, leaving behind the broken fragments of our peaked relationships and stepping into the light of a family renewed. As the cool evening air spilled through the open window, the remnants of the past dwindled and I felt a fresh gust of wind wash over us, buoying our spirits higher. My heart swelled with pride, not only for myself but for Emma, for all of us. We had braved the storm of our familial disconnect and emerged, our relationships forged anew like iron sharpened in fire, growing stronger and more resilient than ever before. Moments like these were rare indeed. I understood that our journey was far from over, that countless challenges would no doubt knock on the door of our lives in the future. But now I felt equipped to tackle those storms, armed with love and understanding that Phil and Claire from our favorite show had brilliantly taught us. It was the bond we shared that truly mattered. Wrapping my arms around myself, I infused the moment with warmth, promising to keep our family spirit alive with laughter and honesty. Together, we could face anything the world would hurl at us, hand in hand, as a united front, the living room filled with a gentle hum of chatter, laughter bubbling over like a pot left too long on the stove. As I sank into the couch, the fabric soft against my skin, I felt joy radiating through our little family unit. Not long ago, this space had been heavy with silence, a thick fog of unspoken disappointment hanging over us like storm clouds. Now a lightness filled the air, shifting our family dynamic from strained interactions to a dance of vibrant conversations and playful jokes. Knock, knock, my father called out, his voice wavering with that mix of nervousness and excitement. He stood in the doorway, a wide-eyed grin plastered across his face like a child waiting to surprise an eager crowd with their magic trick. Who's there? We all chimed in unison, eyes twinkling, anticipating the punchline. Olive, he declared, eyes sparkling with mischief. Olive who? Emma asked, her playful disbelief igniting laughter from my mother and me. Olive you, and I miss you. He shot back, cheeks dimpled like a cherub, cringing and laughing at the same time. I couldn't help but shake my head. I had to give him credit, he was trying. That was definitely a dad joke, Dad, I said, a full smile spreading across my lips. It wasn't the worst, Emma conceded, giggling softly, leaning back in her seat. The mental barriers she had put up around her heart seemed to tumble down more each day. She wasn't just sitting beside us anymore. She was engaging, her cheeks flush with a touch of color, her laughter bouncing off the walls like echoing music. I think you should keep your day job, though, she teased, glancing at my father. But keep 'em coming. We need more jokes like that for family game night. We all collectively nodded, spurred on by her give and take. It was so characteristic of her newfound self. Emma was shining, and I felt that spark of pride well up in me. Just a few months ago, the mere thought of public speaking had caused her to retreat into herself, hiding behind shattered confidence. Now here she was, gently ribbing our father like a seasoned comedian testing out new material. What do you mean? I could probably get a career in comedy, he said, swinging his arm around my mother as if they were in on an inside joke. My mother laughed so hard, her laughter rang out like a melodic chime in the room. Oh, please tell that to the dog. He's the one who's been truly suffering since you started telling these jokes. Just then, our golden retriever, Buddy, let out a woeful whimper from the corner, his soulful eyes trained on my father. But instead of retreating into defeat like he might have not all that long ago, my father shrugged comically and pointed at Buddy, saying, "No audience is perfect, I guess." More laughter erupted, and I took a moment to reflect on how far we had all come. Our parents, who had once been marred by rigid expectations, were softening gradually as they learned to accept and embrace us for who we truly were. As the sitcom droned on in the background, I couldn't help but look around the room again, soaking in the scenes unfolding before me like a movie on repeat. My eyes found Emma, whose once anxious demeanor now glowed with fierce determination. Barely a month had passed since that night of truth-telling, which had acted like some sort of magical key unlocking the best versions of ourselves. She had finally taken a leap, pursuing pottery classes with fervor, her hands discovering a new rhythm of creativity. "Did I tell you artist types about the clay sculpture I tried making?" she asked, her eyes alight with a contagious eagerness. I thought I had it all down right, but it turned into a complete disaster. It ended up looking like a squished potato, a bland, lumpy potato. "Hey, potatoes are great," my mother chimed in playfully. "They are versatile," I interjected with a grin. Maybe it was a new art form, abstract potato art. Your next big thing, Emma. If those crazy modern artists can sell anything, so can you. She shot me a mock glare, shaking her head like a diva about to storm off stage. "Unless you can turn it into a roasted potato, I think I should stick to porcelain instead." Laughter roared again, passing around us like an enthusiastic wave, and I reveled in it. Gone were the days when we avoided the dinner table out of fear for each other's opinions or judgments. Now we were feasting on moments together, indulging in playful jabs and loving exchanges, celebrating in our small, perfect ways. I gazed into my mother's eyes, now shimmering like crystal clear waters. "Mom, you should come with us next time to a pottery class. Think of all the new things you could try." "Now that would be something," she replied, her enthusiasm bubbling as she wrapped her arms around my shoulders, pulling me into her warmth. "But can we please stick to more manageable projects?" I have no wish to become a potato or go down in history as the pottery disaster of Cloverfield. "I'll help you, you know I've got serious skills now." Emma winked with exaggerated confidence, making me laugh yet again. "How is it that the two of you can turn anything into special plans?" my father asked, looking between us with awe. "Do you have a special handbook or something?" "Yep, a secret one," I declared, gesturing to my heart. "But you need to unlock it first. Guest passes are available for family only." "Family, that's rich," he said, feigning dramatic dismay. "The way you guys swing that humor around, I may as well start my own comedy act." A warmth spread inside me, and I wondered if any of us would have envisioned our lives like this when we were all standing on shaky ground. The restorative journey, paired with a sense of open-heartedness, planted roots that ran deep beneath the surface of our everyday existence. Even our parents, once cloistered in observance, were stepping out from behind their walls, willing to embrace the messy, imperfect joys of family life. One moment stood out distinctly in my mind, as if a spotlight had been cast around it. "Remember how I stumbled through that one severe family meeting?" I attempted to save as a moment of truth. "Everything felt tight and suffocating. There were so many resentments flaring." "Whoa, whoa," my father interjected, raising his hands in mock surrender. "We not dig back into that grave? I thought we buried it with all the awkwardness." I laughed, shaking my head. "I'm just saying it's hard to recognize the beauty without experiencing the struggles." "Oh, darling, I agree," my mother offered earnestly, looking deeply into my eyes. "We've been through shadows and light together, haven't we?" I nodded, remembering the feeling of uncertainty, of unraveled knots. Those treacherous threads stitched tightly into our family's fabric had made it feel unbearable to undo. And yet here we were, facing the sun head-on, cradled in each other's arms instead of straining against one another. With our sitcom still humming softly, the room filled with delighted chatter wrapped tightly in the bond of familiarity. I felt an unshakable gratitude, overwhelmed by the realization of just how deeply love could root itself into the hearts of those willing to embrace vulnerability and open dialogues. I could hardly believe it, but we had reclaimed our identity, harnessing our collective stories, every single laugh and tear to create something that was distinctly ours. Sometimes life presents challenges that can fracture relationships, but it is the willingness to confront our issues, to embrace kindness over perfection that unites us. What began as moments of pain had evolved into a tapestry of warm colors, stitched together by understanding and belonging. And while the threads may never be perfect, the love that enmeshed them was what defined us. Cloverfield was no longer just a backdrop. It was our sacred ground, the stage on which we chose to embrace both joy and turmoil. I had found my voice in the cadence of our family's laughter and reclaimed our narrative, echoing with jars of growing clay and loving arms that stretched outward. Our story would never be perfect, but it was gloriously, beautifully ours, woven with laughter, a tapestry of raw honesty, and an unshakable bond that would fortify us through whatever twists life had in store for us.